We're doing another Snapshot. For those of you guys that are new here, Snapshot's my unscripted series where I kind of just go over something that's coming out in Guild Ball. This one's going to be about Veteran Captain Greede. He's the last of the new captains coming out this year. Before we get into him too much, you kind of have to understand the environment that Greede's being released into. There were just massive buffs to the entire faction. Union was one of the least played factions, and now Greede is being released as a strong captain, in my opinion, into a faction that is just way above the curve as far as stat lines and what they do. It's kind of impossible to talk about Greede without talking about Do the Thing and Trusty Steed. So we'll do Trusty Steed first. This model fills the roles of both captain and mascot in your team. Model generates 2 VPs when it suffers taken out. Avarice may not be selected for your team if this model is your captain. So this means you play with only 5 models on the pitch, and then Do the Thing fixes the problem of 5 models on the pitch, which is once per turn a friendly model may take a second activation. This is where almost all of Greede's power comes from, is the fact that there is one less, usually useless activation on the pitch, and then he gives an extra activation. That extra activation hangs out even if you lose Greede, so there isn't a super jailing of getting a hold of Greede and holding him across the turn line. You also don't have to put the buff on someone. It's not like Superior Strategy where you have to select the model or let them know about the model that has to, or that's going to take the second activation, which makes this a lot more powerful than it initially seems. Alright, so let's start with his core stats now that we've talked basically about his gimmick. He's a melee zone 2, 4-6 move, attack 5, kick 3-6, defense 3-2, 6-6 influence, which seems absurdly high at first until you realize that he's a captain and a mascot, so he's got to bring that between them. But still, I'd be expecting 5 influence here, not 6. So this makes him the highest influence captain-mascot pairing in all of Union. Playbook, 1-on-1 or a momentous push, knockdown on 2, momentous 2 damage on 3, alongside an unmomentous double push, unmomentous tackle on 4, momentous damage on 3, momentous 3 damage on 4, and unmomentous 4 damage push on 5. So the attack 5, again, we're going to kind of cheat because the back of his card is very important here. But the playbook seems kind of bad at attack 5. 2 damage on 3 with attack 5 is usually pretty bad. But he's attack 6, actually, because the turtle he's riding has shelling out still. So he just always has +1 attack, and he's printed attack 5, but is effectively always going to be attack 6. Which means he also has a brewer book, where his book is 1 short. Character plays, forward minions, cost 2 range self, 6-inch pulse, friendly models within the pulse gain +2/+2 move. So he can be how is this not the legendary? This is really good. I think this is literally Ferrite's legendary, or maybe just a better version of Ferrite's legendary. And I get that she's a blacksmith captain, but if the 2-cost character play just gives out +2/+2 move in a pulse, and it's a 2-cost character play. That's what Quickfoot is. It's what Esther's has, and it's a 6-inch pulse. That's super good. Persuasion, cost 1, range 6. Target other model suffers a 2-inch push. Each model may only be affected by this character play once per turn. This is both a friendly and enemy character play. So you can make 1 dice throws at it, at another model on the other team, or you can use it to just threat extend your own guys or disengage. It's worth noting here that with a double push on 3, the charge bonus time of persuasion is a pretty reliable way to push models off the pitch, so keep that in mind when you're standing near the edge of the pitch against Greede. Shouldn't come up a ton, but it shouldn't come up because you're aware of it. And he's got 20 hit points as a 3-2, which makes him on the more durable side of captains. Now, his counterattack is not fantastic, but double push on 3, attack 6, you need either access to a knockdown or good defensive stats to really go hit this guy. back of the cards. We already talked about Shelling Out, which is the aura the turtle has. It's 4-inch aura plus 1 tack to friendly models in the aura. If they inflict the taken out condition, you get an extra momentum. And then we talked about Trusty Steed and Do the Thing. Lance is his only other ability on the back of his card. When this model makes a charge, this model gains an additional plus 2 tack and plus 1 damage to the playbook damage result for the duration of the charge. So charging is good. So if you're not familiar with the math of Guild Ball, you almost never want to charge unless you have to. Because charging costs an extra influence and is effectively, because it charges you for the sprint and the attack, so it's 2 influence. And you would almost always rather walk up and make multiple attacks because of the existence of defensive stats and how powerful that is to affect the odds of you hitting the higher end of your playbook. Usually the 4 dice is worse than just leaving them at their flat defense. Obviously there are situations where that's different, but Greede seems like he might always want to charge. Plus 2 tech and plus 1 damage is not to be scoffed at. On the plus side, reach models with good counterattacks will almost always want to counterattack him, assuming that he's not likely to wrap, because then he'll actually be giving something up if he has to take his knockdown. But again, with the Brewer book, he's almost guaranteed to wrap on this. On the charge, he'd be rolling 12 dice because of Lance. Against a 3-1, the death stances to 4-1. He's 38% to wrap. So just hit you for 2 damage and knock you down. So that's assuming Death Stance counterattack. And he just... Charging with this guy being... A charge being effectively plus 6 dice and an extra damage makes it pretty close to almost always worth it to charge. I assume there are some situations where the math doesn't work out for you, but 6 dice puts you over that hump of the extra defense. Obviously, if you have a bunch of gang ups giving you other dice, this can affect the math pretty much. But Lance is really, really strong ability. But it's going to make counterattacks and death stances very popular against him. But that's momentum drain. If you start hitting your takeouts inside the Shelling Out aura, you can get a ton of momentum. Also, with the extra activation, it's worth noting that you could take your second activation and charge someone else again. So he might get multiple uses out of Lance. So let's talk about things that are very, very powerful with him. Rage is absolutely absurd with this guy. Rage 1. And that's part of the reason that I think he's going to see a lot of play. So Rage 1 had a couple big changes that make Vet Greede really good with him. The biggest one is the loss of Maverick. So he can benefit from the +2/+2 speed, and he can benefit from persuasion and all that stuff. So essentially, Rage is on board for all of Greede's nonsense. And then Do the Thing, where he takes a second activation, obviously allows him to make a second Furious attack, which means that becomes 2 attacks due to Berserk. So Rage can be very, very strong with this. You can also do things like, since Rage is heroic, he can tooled up for the heroic now. You can heroic move Rage up with the intention of just threatening with it later. Threatening to activate him again later. And then not having to take it, just losing your 1 influence. It's shockingly powerful how hard it is, or it's shockingly difficult to play around Do the Thing. It's insanely strong. It can be any of his guys that still have influence on them. It's really, really hard to kill activations against this team without actually killing the model that is the activation. And then even when you do that, he can do the thing on someone else. That being said, where Greede falls into the layout of Union, I think he's the strongest Union captain and will be the go-to default. As far as him taking Rage or Blackheart's spots, I think Blackheart is better set up for the meta right now of what's popular, in that you need to be able to defend the ball and play kind of a combined game. But I think Greede plays Blackheart's matchups better. Or he plays them very differently, but I think he wants the same matchups. On the other hand, I'm not a Union player, so I don't understand their matchups super well. But Greede is very killy. Like, he's very good at killing models. Shelling out is a big deal, as is the extra activation on Rage, or really anybody. Like, the insane threat extension, like, he can, like, make Fangtooth move, like, 22 inches in a turn or something ridiculous. So, maybe he plays Rage's matchups just as well, and having being able to feint with Blackheart is more important. Also, I'm not sure if they've ruled on this as far as rosters go. I'm really curious that if you wanted to mono ride Greede, if you even have to bring a mascot on your roster. It's a weird question. I think there's also some like clarification as to whether or not Greede takes up 2 slots on your roster when you build a tournament list. I assume that he takes up just a captain slot, but I'm not 100% certain about that, and that's how I hope they rule it. But overall, I think Greede is not broken, but definitely up there with one of the strongest captains in the game. I think he's very, very good. He's a lot subtler than he looks, but is, I think, really cool, and his mini's fantastic. So with that being said, what do you guys think of Veteran Greede? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to know the minute I upload a new video, share this with your friends. My name is Vincent Curkov, and this has been another Snapshot.